It's non-denominational holiday time, and boy, have we got a present for you. Never ever have we received as many requests to review a board game as we have done for Root, a game about cutesy critters slaughtering each other for woodland supremacy. A game that has understandably whipped up board game enthusiasts into a frenzy. So this holiday season we thought, what better present could we give to our audience than a review of this sensational game? Because in our household, Christmas
means murder!
That was quite some murder.
Yes, it was the most murder in any board game review ever, and in fact I'm expecting a visit from the Guinness people any second now.
Do you want to do the review while we wait?
Yes, because the excitement might just slay me. In Root, you will take on the role of one of the game's 4 factions: the malicious Marquis de Cat, the ever-present Eyrie, the bombastic Woodland Alliance of bunnies, meese and foxes, and that raccoon known as the Vagabond. Your objective: take control of the beautifully illustrated forest by claiming the most important prize of all: be the first to 30 victory points. One look at Root's cover and it's not hard to imagine why it's captured so many people's imagination. Here is a box that has ladles and ladles of charm. Delve deeper and peek at the art on the cards and it reveals even more character and even a sprinkle of panache.
What exactly is panache?
I think it's some sort of detergent, but let's not get distracted. As much as the Fight Club via Beatrix Potter artwork from Kyle Ferrin makes it stand out, it's a mere candle to the roaring forest fire that is this game's high concept. Root is a game of war where each faction has their own units that they deploy on the map, move them into territories, and then fight. But the way each faction does anything is completely different.
Play as Marquis de Cat and you will find yourself thrust into the role of the forest usurper, desperately clinging on to retain control. Look, that's a cat on almost every clearing. Surely you are the king of the woodland. How can anything ever go wrong? As the murder fluffballs, you'll probably play a game that's most familiar. Building sawmills that will fetch you wood, recruiters that will make more cats, and smithies that will let you craft artifacts that work as special abilities. Each building you build of the same type will fetch you progressively more points. However, it will cost you progressively more wood. Build a lot of sawmills and you will never have a problem with wood. But you will have no cats to protect it with. However, build a lot of recruiters and you will have a force to be reckoned with. But you will be too slow to snag a win. However, leave the cats unchecked and they will surely run away with victory.
Blink and you'll miss this tiny, unimposing cluster of everyone's favourite mammal. birds. Whereas you once ruled the forest, now you are but a mere shadow of your former glory. But feather not, because it won't take much to reclaim it all again. As the Eyrie, you will play what's called a programming game, but if that conjures images of computer wizards coding software, don't let that deter you, because A, it's nothing like that, and B, it's pretty basic. Each turn you will be forced to play cards into the decree. These cards form the mandate that, as the leader of the Eyrie, you are obligated to fulfill. To translate that into human, each part of the decree is an action such as moving, battling or building roosts, etc. Put a fox card into battle and that means that you can battle an additional time in a fox clearing. But it also means that you must battle an additional time in a fox clearing. Whereas the cats can perform mostly just 3 actions a turn, your roster of action grows like an unwieldy Christmas tree that will start shoving presents into your arms whether you want them or not. Recruit, move and battle turns into recruit, 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 which is incredibly hard to say, move, move, battle, battle, build, and if you fail to perform even a single one of these, then your decree falls apart and you lose points. Playing the birds is the equivalent to Frankensteining yourself on extra arms and legs until you have so many appendages that you can no longer function, which is in fact an allegory if you think about it for how governments work. But there's another catch. Unlike the cats, you build roosts, and roosts don't score you points when you build them, but at the end of every turn. Which means turn after turn you'll score more and more points simply for doing things, which means everyone will try and make you fail your decree. But leave the birds unchecked and they will surely run away with victory.
And if you think that is explosive, then wait till you walk a mile in the shoes of the Woodland Alliance. If the cats start everywhere on this map and the birds have their own little corner, then the Woodland Alliance starts nowhere. That's right, you have no presence in this forest. Instead you have support. Slowly but surely you will start spreading sympathy across the woodland realm. Sympathy that can be squashed, but each time someone does, you will gather even more support. Gather enough support and you will literally be able to explode a sympathy token, blowing everything up in a single clearing. Here is the kicker. Because you are the underdog, you have half as much of a potential fighting force than any other faction. And because you start with none, it takes you a long time to build up a presence. But every sympathy token you place will score you more and more victory points.
Let me guess, if the Woodland Alliance goes unchecked, then they'll run away with the victory. I'm sensing a lot of checks here, and who better to write those checks than the most bat-crazy faction of any wargame ever, the Vagabond. Imagine a faction in a game about having soldiers and sending them into battle where you only have one soldier. One piece, travelling the world, delving into dungeons, completing quests, doing some casual murdering, and generally having a grand time. If the other factions are parasitic organisms spreading their systems across what can only be described as a biosphere of mechanisms, then you are the constant gardener gently pruning the tendrils of corruption. As the Vagabond, you even have a system of alliances. Start killing cats, for example, and you'll get victory points for any additional cats you kill. Or you could help the birds out by giving them cards. And if you give them enough cards, suddenly you'll be able to lead the birds into battle. But you have to be careful. Favour one faction too much and you'll tip the scales in their favour. But leave the Vagabond unchecked.
They'll run away with victory. Alright, we get it. This is why Root is so compelling, because playing each faction is like playing an incomplete puzzle where the missing pieces are your opponents. Let's say, as the Eyrie, you string together a perfect combination of cards. It won't matter that each turn you will have to move out of 2 fox clearings and 1 bunny clearing, because you'll have prepared for that. But let's say that I go in and decide to kill one of Elaine's cats.
Leave my cats alone.
Elaine now has a grudge against me, and she will leverage my strong position on the victory point track to convince everyone else that I am the enemy. And that's all it takes for someone to go from winner to loser. Even if there's a whiff of success in the air about you, you better have some air freshener to mask it. This analogy has gone weird. My point is, as much as Root is saying, look, I'm a game of cutesy animal war, this really isn't a war game. Sure, you have soldiers and you have combat, but that's mostly just a tool to get in the way of other players. What this game is an exercise in puzzle solving and the ability to convince other players that your puzzle isn't the most aggressive. And what this game really is a myth. It might sound like we're being negative, but we're not. We mean myth in all senses of the word. Something that's based on reality being the fact that this is a cardboard box with components that compose a board game that you can play, but through a mystical veneer of gorgeous artwork and the promise of asymmetric player roles and the oratory culture of board game enthusiasts has taken on the perception of something more than it is. I remember my first game of Root very vividly. We each picked a faction based on personal preference, knowing full well that we won't be able to sink our teeth into the full depth that this game has to offer. And I won't lie to you when I say that playing that first game wasn't as exciting as what came afterwards. The inevitable discussion of how the cats should have used their field hospital ability more, and how the birds suffered from the perception that they might be too powerful, how the Vagabond should have focused more on questing, and how unstoppable the Woodland Alliance felt in the end. We immediately gravitated towards picking this game apart, and that could have only come from us being invested. But it also came from a feeling that instead of ending on a bang or on a whimper, this game sort of just ended, and we didn't know what to do with ourselves. But we wanted to believe that somewhere inside of this box there is a perfect game of Root, and that if we played it long enough, we'd find it. We wanted to believe that after X games, someone won't just blow the game out. There'll be a really tight race, a real clash of the titans, and after a neck-and-neck battle, whoever comes out on top, it'll feel like they've earned it. But that feeling never came, even though we did have games that were incredibly close, and I suspect that's something to do with how this game ends. As soon as somebody reaches 30 victory points, that's it, the line is cut and they are declared the victor. Imagine these pieces as victory points. Someone will tip the scales, and then someone will tip them some more, and then you'll keep tipping until someone slams it down and takes it away. Except in your head you're going right now, wait a minute, Efka, that's not how scales work. Just because you dropped 1 kilo on one end, what stops me from dropping 2 kilos on the other? The 30-point victory marker feels arbitrary, because arguably, if I had another turn, what stops me from just spewing out more points?
Root fans will undeniably lynch us if at this point we don't mention the dominance cards. In most plays, especially if you're new, then the dominance cards will just feel like cards. But once in a blue moon, someone will start feeling brave and might just play one for its dominance effect. And at that point, everyone will start going, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa! If you play a dominance card, you remove your victory point marker and chuck it back in the box. You won't need it because you can no longer score victory points or win with them. Now you win if you control certain clearings at the end of the game. For example, 3 fox clearings with a fox dominance card. This is what is colloquially known as a ballsy move, as everyone will immediately descend on you like vultures as soon as you do it. Playing a dominance card is like signing your own death certificate, but wouldn't it be great if there were somewhere down the line that one game of Root?
And some of you might say, look MPI, you clearly want this game to be something that it isn't, except everything in Root leads you to believe that it's taking you to the promised land. Every faction has a carrot on a stick, and that carrot is the game's expansion. What are you doing?
I don't know, I just thought we could do like a smooth segue.
Does this segue feel very smooth?
No.
Ah, yes, the Riverfolk Expansion, aka all the extra stuff that was unlocked as part of Root's Kickstarter. And some of it really does feel extra. Like, why did they put 5 wooden blocks into my copy?
Efka, that's card holders.
Oh yeah, actually, that's really nice. And some of it really does feel extra, like the mechanical marquee, which hands off the role of the cats to the AI so that you could play solo or co-op or whatever other variants they dredged up that just don't work. But the 2 actual extra factions that are included in this expansion, the Lizard Cult and the Riverfolk Trading Company, well, those are gravy. Because whatever that myth of Root is, whatever that carrot is, they have extra of it. We haven't talked much about the cards in Root because they work so differently for each faction, but imagine them as a resource. If a card has, for example, the mouse suit, that means it's a resource that will function in a mouse clearing, and how it functions really depends on whom you're playing. Now imagine playing a faction in a war game whose entire engine is based on the premise of playing with an open hand of cards and trading those cards away to other players. Not only do you have to figure out what value your opponents are willing to pay for whatever it is you're selling, but you also have to convince them to buy things altogether. After all, everyone could collectively decide to ignore you. And then what do you do? Playing the beavers is not only hard, I'd argue they are deliberately more convoluted, less efficient, and less likely to win. But within them lies that potential that one day you will play as the beavers and you will play your best game of Root and you will win one day.
Which brings us to the recommendation part. Now, everything that we have already said might lead you to believe that we are going to say that Root is yet another overhyped Kickstarter overpromiser. Except that it isn't. My belief that the popularity of Root lies in its accessibility, and by that I don't mean that it's easy to learn. This game comes with 2 rulebooks that teach you the game pretty well, but sometimes confuse and mislead, and sometimes even contradict each other. And it's never enough just to learn how your faction works. You have to learn how all the factions work to feel like you have a leg on this table. No, what I mean is this is a war game that refers to no real war. It isn't a battle that your family were involved in or that you might have lost friends to, and so can't really stir up feelings of sadness or regret in the human condition. It's pure fantasy. Plus, it's really cute, making you feel like you're just another part of it rather than you're on the wrong side. It's much harder to hate a faction when they look like weird 30s clocks. And it's a game that can bring people together with differing board game preferences. Don't enjoy having to negotiate to get anything done? Then play pretty much anything but the Beavers or the Vagabond. If you enjoy programming and your friend enjoys Euros, you can still play together, choosing the factions that suit you and how you enjoy playing. You can choose a faction that has a lot of interaction or one where you're pretty much playing your own game, which makes it very adaptable. And if you're not sure which type of game will suit you, you can try each one out and find the one that you like best. You don't have to go out and get a new game in order to play a different game. Almost like a smorgasbord, but instead of meats and cheeses, you get all the wood you could ever dream of. Root is still the right game for the right person, someone who really likes board game mechanisms, someone who likes to tinker, someone who likes to push things far and see how long till it breaks. And if that someone is you, then you might just find joy revelling in this myth. At NPI, we have come across so many games that dare to be different, that experiment, and oftentimes we've just found them to be an awful waste of people's time and money. From the arrogant and obnoxious 504 to the voluptuous Feudum to the very well-meaning Discover Lands Unknown. All of these games have been flights of fancy from the designer or publishing houses that worked on them, and in our experiences, the best that they could offer anyone who bought these games was a cardboard box with wings glued on with candle wax. Root is an experiment, but it's an experiment whose primary concern is to make sure that you have a good time, and maybe you'll play it long enough to engineer that myth into a reality. And for you, the Tinkerer, we undeniably recommend this game, and for you, the expansion is a must. You just have to believe it hard enough. And for us, we can't wait to see what designer Cole Worley or publisher Leader Games is up to next.
The bad news is that if you decided you want to get this game, well, the main game and the expansion are both woefully out of print, and you will have to wait till the Kickstarter reprint or retail reprint, however they decide to further distribute this, to actually get your hands on it. However, if you decided that this wasn't quite for you, or if you just can't wait and want a cool game, here are some alternative recommendations. Kemet is a classic, and it's fantastic. Whilst technically not at all asymmetric, each game power tiles will let you engineer a strategy that feels entirely different, and its 2 expansions significantly change the dynamic of the game. If you're looking for that asymmetric faction feeling, whilst not at all a war game, we couldn't find a better recommendation than Sidereal Confluence, a game of trading alien factions, and those factions suitably feel alien. And whilst both the artwork and the production are utter pants, the gameplay is so crisp, we named it our Game of the Year for 2017. Why can I hear music?